My goal for my marriage is to honor God. A lot of times men get in trouble specifically with like cheating because they base what they do and what they don't do based off of what their wife does or what they don't do. So if my wife ticked me off, she make me mad, we don't have sex for a month or so and I get mad at her, well, I'm gonna go find somebody that can do that for me. And so we base our foundation and our standards off of each other instead of off of God. I don't care how mad I get at my wife, right? I don't care how wrong she may be. I don't care how, according to the world standards, how justified I am to go cheat or justified I am to say hurtful things to her, how justified I am to divorce her, how justified I am to XYZ. At the end of the day, my standard isn't her, it's God. We all can use a little help in our marriage, whether things are going great or maybe you're struggling a little bit. In this episode, we're going to be talking about some do's and some don'ts that are going to help your marriage to not just survive, but to thrive. All right, anyway, so let's go ahead and do some do's and don'ts for marriage, right? This is beyond the holidays. You are going into a new year. Maybe y'all trying to work on some things in your marriage. Here's some things that I think, especially for newlyweds and anybody that's been married for, I say 5 years. Matter of fact, I think this is just good for married couples, period, right?
Facts.
The first thing that you have to do, this is one of the main things I remember from premarital counseling, is this first tip. The first tip is that you have to keep your family out of your marriage problems, right? This is something that was big to me because for me, man, I talked to my dad about everything when I was growing up, girls, all this kind of stuff, man. We went through premarital counseling, and then I kind of bucked back a little bit. I was like, man, you need somebody to talk to and stuff like that. And it may be good depending on your circumstance, depending on who you're talking to have somebody that you can talk to. But at the end of the day, man, if you ain't talking to your wife about the problems you have with your wife, like, that's not good. Right? Here's the example that they gave us, right? They said, let's imagine the situation. You're mad at your wife, right? You mad at her because she didn't do something, which was probably your fault anyway, if you sit back and think about it, but she didn't do something. So you go and fuss to your mom or fuss to your dad about what your wife did, right? So your mom and your dad get mad. I can't believe she did that. Yada, yada, yada. You so good to her. Yada, 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 yada. So you got your mom, your dad, your cousin, your auntie, your best friend's dog's cousin mad at your wife. But then later on, you and your wife talk about it. You settle it. Everything is good. But guess what? Mama, daddy, auntie, sisters, cousins that you told all that stuff when you was mad, they still mad at her, right?
Yeah.
So you come to the family gathering 3 months later, they still mad about something she said 3 months ago, and y'all done forgot about it, right? Then it caused a whole bunch of issues and stuff like that, man. So that's one thing that I thought was good, because that's one thing for like me and my wife, man. When we get upset with each other, one thing that we do is we make sure that we talk to each other, right? Even though it may take a minute, and you may be like, you come up later, you be like, man, like, I'm sorry, what you say? I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I said what I said, whatever it is. But we try to resolve things as quickly as possible. I know for us, man, the whole going to bed mad at each other, the whole like you go sleep on the couch thing, like that don't fly. That's a no-fly zone in my house. We don't do that.
Yeah,
that's not an option. Like, bro, but I tell you what, I'll stay up to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I won't go to sleep. I'll be mad, but I won't go to sleep, man. And that's how it used to be, man. But it's certain things now, man. I say, man, you know what? It ain't even really worth being mad. This really ain't.
Right.
And I'll go, even if I don't feel like it was all my fault, I still may have said something that caused the issue to get to where it didn't need to get to, right? And so at the end of the day, your family, and like I said, it may be different depending on the situation, but I say as a good golden rule, as a good nugget, man, is just keep your family out of your business, right? Out of your marriage. I just really think that's just a good thing, man. What about you? You agree or disagree? What you think?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think it goes back to one of the first points that we talked about as far as like Christmas, like how to set that up as far as splitting Christmas time. Like you got to talk about those expectations with your spouse, but you also have to have those hard conversations with your family. And I know that was something that we had to learn early on and was still kind of dealing with for a couple of years, where it was just like, hey, look, like we know y'all want to add in some commentary, but like, nah, like that's not how we gonna rock here. And then like, hey,
Mhm.
look, like when I'm talking to my spouse, like, hey, I know you kind of similar. My wife, her best friend is her mom. And it's just like, shout out to Miss Lisa, love you. But it's just
What's up,
like,
Miss
hey,
Lisa?
we used to have, conversations around that. Like you can't talk to them about every single thing, and we haven't resolved it here. Like, and I think
Right.
too, like, especially when I was going through the dating phase, it was like that was kind of okay, but now y'all not dating no more. Like this is your spouse. Like you've left that family now to now work through and resolve these things between you two first. Like, hey, look. And I think, man, that's definitely something that's needed. But I also think, in addition to that, like, hey, work it out. But if you cannot work it out, get somebody trusted and faithful, maybe not a family member, a pastor or a therapist, and bring them
Right.
in so that you can work through those things. Because sometimes, like as men, like we just don't be seeing the ways that we, messing up and not thinking through certain things, and we need an outside voice. But hey, you need to do the work first. Like, don't just be coming in that thing you ain't did nothing. But I think that too, like, it is good to bring in a voice that's trusted, not your best friend that can
Yeah.
take your side, not your mama who gonna take your side. Get somebody on the outside, non-biased, but
Right.
also somebody that you can trust and know that they're gonna give you some solid truth. They're not just gonna tell you
Right.
what you want to hear.
Right. And I think that's it. And I think for a lot of people, I don't think our close family is that person. I don't think it should be, honestly.
Right,
And like
right,
you said, I think it
facts.
should be somebody who is unbiased, somebody who um can hear both sides of the story. If it gets to that, most of the drama, most of the just stupid silly stuff that we fight or fuss
Yeah,
about, it could be
don't get nothing.
resolved within whatever. Me and my wife, we was fighting. We weren't even fighting. We was just fussing about something stupid. Something about like how the grits was made. I don't know. Just it'd be little silly stuff like that. It was like, why I'm sitting
You
here
put
mad that
sugar in
she
my
don't like
grits.
my grits. Right, like she don't like my grits today because they a little soupy. I knew they was a little soupy. I'm just mad that she just recognized that they was soupy and that they didn't turn out like I
That is
liked them.
hilarious.
So I get mad and do all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And it be silly stuff right here. My cousin Brooke, she says this right here. She says that they have a 2 hour be mad and get glad window.
Come
You
on.
get two
Come on,
hours to
bro.
be in your feelings, and then we are dealing with it and moving
Hey,
on. No sun
that's
goes
solid.
down on our wrath.
That's
Woo,
solid, bro. Hey, can I just add this
woo,
comment? I think that that's a good point.
yeah.
I think that it is good to have that 2 hour window because it allows you space
Mhm.
to be human. Hey, okay, like, hey, look, I know that you're emotional about this and you deserve some time as a human to process through that. Like, you can't just, because I'm not that person. I'm not the person
Right.
all of a sudden, hey, my wife is. My wife would get in an argument that she'd be like, all right, let's cuddle. I don't want you to be close with me,
You know,
girl.
that's me.
Gi- give me give me a second. And so we always, kind of have that tension at times where I'm like, hey, I definitely want to reconcile. I definitely I still love you. I love you because I'm
Yeah.
still here.
Right.
And we got 3 kids. Child support would be wild. But
And one
but
on the
also
way. And one
one
on
on
the
the way.
way.
Hey, your boy ain't helping himself out, boy. The Bible said, "Be fruitful and multiply." I'm just trying to honor God. But anyways,
Right.
but I think that 2 hour window is great because it allows you the opportunity to process through. And for men too, like we don't process through our emotions. We don't even be knowing how we be feeling at times. And so to
Right.
have that time to really flesh that out. But then, hey, your 2 hours is up. You had your,
Right.
there is a time to be mad. I don't think that's
Hmm.
Bible, but there's a time to grieve, obviously, and lament. All these
Right.
things, emotional. There's a time to, and now it's the time to, hey, let's get to work now. Hey, you done had your time.
Right.
Let's stop wallowing in it.
And that's facts,
Brooke,
man.
solid,
That's
solid.
yeah, that's so solid because like you said, like the raw emotion that we feel when we get ticked off, right? That's
Yeah,
legit. Those are legit feelings that we do need to work through. And And like at times when your wife says something that she know gonna tick you off, or you say something to her that you know, like I said, that's gonna make her mad. I'm gonna say it, right? They gonna need time to chill out. They gonna need time to chill out. You
Yeah.
gonna catch an elbow to the eye or something like that, right? And it's
Right.
good to process and to think about that. And especially for me, man, I get upset. I get real mad when my wife tells me things that I know I needed. I
Mhm.
know I needed to hear. And it ain't like I'm really
Yeah.
mad at her. I'm really mad at myself, but I'm mad that she told me without me asking her about it. You know, kind of deal. When you sit back and you really think about it, you be
Yeah.
like, man, what she said was factual, right? That was
Right.
legit. I am tripping, right? And you
Mm.
get that
Mm.
time to process that, and you come back and be like, "Yo, I'm sorry, I got mad, this, and that, or whatever." And you have to process through that. So, Brooke, I like that. And I know
Yeah.
for me and my wife, man, I don't think we've been mad at each other for a long time like that, like
Mm.
for a while. Like it was like
Yeah.
dating days when we were like mad for multiple hours or whatever. But when we were married, man, we do pretty good at settling things pretty quickly. She better than me because it don't take much. I mean, it take a lot to make me upset. But when I'm mad, like I'm mad for like I can be mad for like weeks if I don't
Yeah.
follow this rule, right? I can be mad, and
Mm.
then I think about other stuff that made me mad. Then I pile that on top of the stuff that other made me mad last time. She said this, and that, and so I have to cut that. I know that about myself. I have to cut that off. I have to, tame that angry green giant
Come
inside
on
and be
now.
like, you know what? Nope. Mm-mm. I'm finna apologize, even though I know she the one who started it or whatever. However I feel about it, I'm gonna kill it, and I'm gonna make sure this is good and this is done. My wife, man, she be good and she'll be fine quicker. She like, boy, ain't nobody worry about you, right?
Yeah.
And she be
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
you gonna come around when you ready. She don't stay mad, man. She just don't, man. And I think that's good, right? Right to have that, man. Yeah,
Hey, we gotta turn this into a couple of more episodes because I mean, you speaking.
yeah.
Paul says, hey, my aim in life is not to please man, and I would add not to please self, but my aim is to please God. So as we're like doing all of these things, dying to ourselves, killing that monster inside of us, it's not because
Hmm.
we want our spouse. We want to reconcile. We want our spouse to be happy and joyful, and we want that relationship to be peaceful. We want to keep the unity, but more than that, like we want to
Yeah.
please God and continue the communion that we have with Him, and everything flows from that. So it's like, hey, like the reason why I'm doing this is not even necessarily because I want you to experience that, but I also want to experience forgiveness from God and communion with Him, and I want to do this for Him. And when I want to do that for Him, I also want to do it for you. Like there's no question
Yeah.
about it. Like it's a natural flow of my relationship with the Lord just bleeds into everything. So I'm doing all of these things, all of these hard things, because I want to
Mm.
please God. And when I please God, I please my wife.
Yeah. And man, I think that's good, man. That was my timer to stop, but we're gonna keep it rolling. It's good.
Hey, let's
We
go.
got some more comments. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but thank you for your comment. She said it just randomly came across her feed, man. That's how the
That's
Lord work. It might be
that's
something you need to
fire.
hear, your husband or your
Come on
boyfriend
now.
need to hear. I don't know,
Send
man.
it
That's how
to
the
him.
Lord
Hey,
work.
send it
But
to all
man,
the men in
here's
your life.
yeah, he sent it to her. So here's the thing, man. Man, you made a good point. Go back to that point you said because you said something that I wanted to piggyback off of. What was the last thing you
As
said?
far as like pleasing God, like it's more about pleasing
Yeah,
God
pleasing
than
God.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so at the end of the day, my goal for my marriage is to honor God, right?
Come on.
I think a
Come on.
lot of times men get in trouble specifically with like cheating and specifically
Mm-hmm.
with like different things like that because they base what they do and what they don't do based off of what their wife does or what they don't do. Right?
Come on.
So if my
Yeah.
wife ticked me off, she make me mad, we don't have sex for a month or so and I get mad at her, well, I'm gonna go find somebody that can do that for me, right? I'm gonna go find
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
that can help me do that because that's how I feel right now. Because you ain't doing your
Mm.
job, so I'm gonna do this. And so we base our foundation and our standards off of each other instead of off of
Mm,
God. Because at the end of the day, I don't care how mad I get at my wife, right? I don't care
yeah.
how wrong she may be. I don't care how, according to the world standards, how justified I am to go cheat, or justified I am to say hurtful things to her, how justified I am to divorce her, how justified I am to XYZ. At the end
Come on.
of the day, my standard isn't her, it's God. My
Eh,
marriage is the health of my marriage is based off of my relationship with God. And if what
mm,
I'm about to do, or what I want to do, or what I plan to do is dishonoring to God,
mm.
then don't do it,
My.
right?
Yeah.
Because it don't
Yeah.
matter. Like if that is, if God is the center, if God is the foundation of not just your marriage but of your life, your standards are high, right? Your
Yeah. That's
standards are
good.
high.
That's good.
And so no matter how ticked off you get, no matter what happens, no matter how she acts, no matter whatever, your response should be based off of the standards that God has set, not that you have set in your
My.
mind, and not even the things that you and your wife may have set in your marriage, right? And
Mm,
so, and that should just be the core of our lives, guys, because this whole thing is about honoring God with every single part of our lives. Our
yeah.
foundation and our reason for doing things and not doing things should be based off of our relationship with God and the foundation of his word. That's going to keep us out of a lot of trouble. That's going to keep us married for 50, 100 million years. That's going to keep
30 some.
our families
Mm.
healthy. That's going to keep
Yeah.
our relationship with God rolling when we base our lives off of the Bible and not off of what we feel. That's what gets a lot of guys in trouble. They justify their actions based off of what their wife has done or hasn't done, and they say it's okay because of the XYZ. That's why
God
marriages
damn.
fail. That's why marriages
Mm.
fails. That's why marriages suck. Is because guys are basing that off of what they think, and not off of what the Bible says. This episode is going great so far, but we want to hear from you. Go ahead and take a minute to leave a comment down below, leaving some advice that you may have that can help somebody who watches this video later.
That's
Dude,
good.
man, I think that's good, man. And we can talk about things like the doghouse and sleeping on the couch and stuff like that. Like I said earlier, man, I really
We
honestly
pay
don't
too
think that
much.
needs to be an option.
Yeah, no.
I really don't think that
Look,
needs to be an option.
that mortgage too high for me to be on the couch. We gonna be. Hey, we got a king size bed.
Right,
It's enough room for
right,
us both. But
right.
no,
You
we
need to work it out.
hopefully we reconcile. We need to work it out.
You just
That's
need
the
to work
thing.
it out, man.
That's the thing.
And like I said, there are, like Rafa said earlier, there are instances and situations, man, where seriously, man, counselors, pastors, and different things like that, outside voice, it needs to happen. That's just. I mean, it's a thing for a reason. Um, but at the core of a lot of just basic stuff, especially for new marriages and new relationships, is it's just our selfishness that we just need to work
Yeah.
out. It's just the things that we need to get over ourselves and seek to honor God in our marriage and not honor ourselves and get what we want out of it. So, dude,
You got to
I
go
ain't got
back to
nothing to
them
talk about.
vows, man. Hey, I'm
Go back
I'm
to the.
just saying,
Oh,
like,
that reminds me. Go ahead, and I'm gonna pull up what I had earlier.
nah. I was just making the point, just the added comment of like, I think that it's just good to go back to them vows. Like when you go back to the
Mm-hmm.
marriage vows and you remember what you said when all of the things were pretty and great and the feelings were there and your wife is beautiful and you got everybody surrounding you, you remember what you said when you made those vows, for better or for worse. Like, hey, yeah, for richer or for poor, like, hey, no matter what, like, hey, you're committed to this person. So you got to work it out. You don't have the option. You said, I do. I do. I really, and I think for some of us, covenant, that idea of covenant is lost on us. Like we just think that, hey, this is something that, we can simply say and not really mean, and there's not a commitment. Like when we look at the covenant, and what's lost to us too is that there's not just two people that come together in the union or in the marriage, especially initially and hopefully throughout, but it is you, your spouse, and God. And you're not just making a covenant with another human that's broken. You're making a covenant with God. And when God makes covenants, he's serious. He's committed. He's truly committed. He's so committed that when we're not committed, he's still committed. And so we got to be reminded of covenant. We got to be reminded of the vows. We got to be reminded that, hey, this was more than just words that we were saying. Now we have the opportunity in this moment of tension in this moment where we're experiencing all of this strife and anger, we've got an opportunity to actually apply the things that we said on this day, that we're supposed
Mhm.
to be more than just mere word. The reason why we wear the ring and we don't take it off is because it is a symbol. It is symbolic of the union and the commitment that we're to have together. Like it's not going anywhere. Like, hey, we are committed no matter what. Um, that was all I had to say, man. That was just
Yeah.
to add a comment. What was the thing that you were thinking about?
Man, I'm just add to this, man. I think marriages grow. Marriages are develop into those 37, 40, 50 year
Mm,
iconic marriages that happens through those tough times. That's why the vows are
yeah.
so important, man.
Mm,
Um and I had notes of what I was gonna say, but it's more based off of what we talked about earlier. Um
yeah.
where we talked about the family. Leaving and cleaving, leaving your family, men leaving your family and coming to your wives. Um, and it talks about, I lost it. Hold on a second.
Oh, you
All right.
good?
Where it talks about the part of the vows where it talks about forsaking all others.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking about those vows, this is kind of backtracking a little bit for those of you maybe tuning in a little bit later. We talked about splitting time with your family during the holidays, but for forsaking all others, and committing yourself to your wife. When I read through those vows, and I've done weddings and stuff like that, I've always thought that meant like, hey, I'm just not going to cheat, right? I'm just not
Yeah.
going to have sex with another woman, right? But like the idea of really forsaking others is that idea of January of Genesis chapter 2 verse 24, where it says a
Yeah.
man leaves his mother and father and it becomes one with his wife, forsaking all of those other relationships to fully be committed to that one relationship that's most important. So that goes beyond, not
Mm,
cheating. That goes beyond that, but not letting your family rule your marriage, not letting other people and your friends and their opinions rule your marriage, forsaking all others, forgetting all of what they're saying. Right? It's not that we ignore good advice, but we're not basing our marriage off of all of that, but we're coming in all together. And we both
come on.
agree that, hey, the foundation of this marriage is going to be built on the word of God, and not
Come
on
on.
other people, man. So that's just one thing, just
Come
kind
on.
of backtracking to what we talked about earlier on today. Um,
Yeesh.
um, all right, we had a question right here, and maybe you can answer this right here. Um, it says, "What does it look like to stand biblically for your marriage during rough time?" What does that look like,
Ooh.
man?
Yeah, I guess I would need kind of some context on what technically is the rough time. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think that regardless of whatever it might be, I think to be committed to your spouse, and not commitment to just like a verbal commitment. Like I'm committed, but I'm still trash. I still say what I want to say. I still say all of these slick things. But I think that it's, hey, I am committed to you regardless of how you come at like me, or how this experience kind of fleshes itself out. I think to love your spouse, not saying I'm just gonna approve and allow you to talk crazy and to be south, but hey, we're gonna confront, we're gonna engage, and I'm gonna do this in a way that's gracious. Like, I know how you're wired. I know those things that get you upset. I'm not going to say the things that my flesh wants me to say. I'm going
Right.
to say the things that the Lord wants me to say, and I'm going to say it in a way and at a time and a space that's going to be conducive, knowing who you are. So I think it's a matter of being committed, and saying, hey, look, like I don't just do this because I think it's the right thing. I do this because, like, the Lord has done this for me. And I think the more we think about, like, how do we stand biblically, we think more about what God has done for us. And that's how we show up in that space. We're gonna choose to show up in this moment the ways in which God did. And so, hey, He was committed and pursued me when I wasn't pursuing Him. And so I'm here. It's rough. My spouse ain't pursuing me in this way, but I'm still called because Christ did. Like, and because He went first, because He did this first, because He modeled it, and He's
Mhm.
presented me help. Like, the way to stand is to know that you're not hopeless, to know that the
Right.
marriage is not. completely out of hand to where God can't redeem that thing. Like, hey,
Right.
I know that the people of God were acting crazy for 40 years while they were in the wilderness, but there was God was still committed and showed provision and proximity. He didn't leave them. I think that all of those things kind of come to mind, but I also think that that's a nuanced thing depending on the situation. Like, man, there are so many ways that we can show up biblically, but I think ultimately, if I was to take like a broad aim and stab at it, I would say, hey, I would look at the ways that God has engaged his people and say that is the model for us in that relationship, especially marriage. Marriage is the one relationship that mirrors the relationship between Christ and his church. Like the way
Mm.
in which a man should serve his wife, his bride, is in the way that Christ has served his bride, the church. He gave himself up for the church. He made himself a present help in time of need for the church. And so for the man at least, I'm saying that, and I think for the wife too. I think that if she's submitted to her husband and he's submitted to God, and even if she's just submitted to God, I'd say her husband's not even submitted to God, she's submitted to God. I think that you have to look at Christ. You have to look at the ultimate model and say, this is how I'm supposed to show up. I know the world wouldn't say. I know the world would say, hey, look, get yours, sweetie. Like you should be gone. You got plenty of reason
Yeah.
to leave him.
Yeah.
He ain't no good. He ain't got no job. He ain't bringing nothing to the table. But it's like,
Right.
hey, remember, you brought nothing to the table. When we talk about our relationship with the Lord, you brought nothing, and He brought
Mm.
everything. And so, it's a hard word, and I think that it is a nuanced word because, hey, when we start talking about abuse and other things, like there's other things to say about that. But I think in general, if this is a general question, I think that's the general thought. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say in a general sense, man, kind of go back to what I said before. Your foundation has to be what God says, right?
Yeah,
Through the arguments, through the hard times, through the frustrations, your reactions or your responses to the issues has to be soaked and bathed in the
yeah,
truth of God.
come on,
And I think
yeah,
that when we stay there, no matter how the spouse may be acting,
mm.
that helps the situation to not get worse, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
two, depending on the situation, like we talked about earlier, if other people need to come into the mix, counselors, pastors, and stuff like that, that's kind of a case by case basis. But generally, man, if your goal as the man or the wife is to honor God and to make sure that He's the foundation of the relationship, I think that is a great start for things just becoming better anyway. Because if you're
yeah.
both of your focus on God and start focusing on yourselves, then it's naturally going to get better, right? Things are naturally going to continue to work out, and then you just keep going on. My wife
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
my wife says that counseling is so important. It's so helpful at times, man. I'm just saying
And I
it's
feel
part
like
of it.
if we're talking about rough time, like I think that that might be a little more than just. And we had an argument about what couch we should get. I think that that's
Yeah,
more of like, hey, he's struggling with his love for me, commitment. There are things there, struggle. And as men, like, women, I think, obviously we are, I just know, like, we are prideful, and there are some spaces where we can just be prideful and not ever have to confront that or engage that. And at times, like when you do bring somebody else in, especially somebody that can speak truth and be direct and honest, and that man actually respects that person and is like, I really, want to hear what he has to say. The guard comes down. You kind of have to be
yeah,
more vulnerable. I think that that is helpful once you get to that point. Because if you're saying, hey, I've done all of those things, I've tried to engage, I've spent time in prayer with the Lord, communion, all those things are present, but he's still acting up. Well, you might be at a space where, hey, get some help. You know what I mean? Like, do
yeah,
not think that you can, at that point, do it yourself because you've done all those things. And I think some people feel like getting therapy is negative or bad, or it says that like you can't figure it out and you're trash. Well, that might be true. You might be trash, but you need help. Like, just like yes, it's meant to say like, hey, you can't do it by yourself. At some point you need to realize, hey, you can't do this. You need help. Get help.
Yeah,
Don't be out there allowing your marriage to die because you don't want to bring nobody else in.
yeah, yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. A couple good comments, man, that came in. Brooke said, "Hey, man, the best model is Christ. He's gracious to us and forgives us over and over again. So forgiveness is key." And then my wife, she says a lot of good stuff right here. She says, yes, those deep root issues and traumas, I'm kind of skipping a little bit, trouble for forgiving, etc. God can definitely use wise counsel to help you get through that. I mean, we got each other for a reason, right?
Yeah.
God put us on this earth, gave people certain skills and certain professions and stuff like that to help us out, man. If you would like to check out the full live stream that this episode came from, you can check that out right here. And if you would like more information and more videos that can help you honor God in every single part of your life, you can check out this video right here. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.